Hi everyone and welcome back to Oodalali Disney Crafts and Fun. My name is Lindsay and in this week's video I have yet again decided to marry my two loves, Dollar Tree and Disney. I decided to go ahead and make a DIY Dreamcatcher wall hanging that is Hocus Pocus themed. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a little bit. A few years ago I did a Hocus Pocus craft. It was quite extensive. I actually replicated the Hocus Pocus spell book. That took me about 3 months to do. I don't have it with me to show, I have it saved, but I think in an upcoming video I will go ahead and just show it to you guys. It has been my pride and joy and something that I think that I will always have in my collection. It's stunning and I am so incredibly proud of it because its infancy started off as a cardboard box. So that's what I love to do when I craft, is I love to take things that normally you would just throw away and just kind of zhuzh it up and make it into something that you would never think it started off as a cardboard box. So in this particular video, I'm going to show you how to create a Hocus Pocus inspired wall hanging slash dream catcher and take you along with me as I create it. So let's get into the craft.
You are going to start off with one of these 3-piece brass wreath rings from Dollar Tree. I am using the medium size along with a couple embroidery hoops. I went through my stash and collected fabrics that reminded me of Winifred, Sarah, and Mary. I also found this amazing cartoonish Hocus Pocus fabric of the witches flying from Joann's, which I absolutely love. I pulled some ribbons and tulle that also coordinated with the fabrics. And I went through my yarn stash and pulled similar colors. I love Sorella yarn and bought this Hocus Pocus set she had last year, along with some other inexpensive yarns from Michael's. First, I am going to take the embroidery hoops apart and use the hoop without the screw top. Starting with the large hoop, you are going to take your yarn and tie a knot onto the circle and wrap the yarn all the way around the hoop. This can take a bit of time, so it's nice to watch your favorite Halloween film or TV show as you're doing this to distract yourself from the repetitive motion. Once you get back to where your first knot is, you can use hot glue to secure the end and trim off the excess. Next, I'm going to cut strips of all the fabrics I selected for each character, and these strips don't have to be perfect or exact, just cut them to your liking, and of course you're going to repeat for the other 2 hoops as well. Once all of your strips are cut, you're going to arrange them in the color flow of your choosing.
Okay, so basically what I did is I created
3 different pieces, and I think you can tell if you're a Hocus Pocus fan, you'll be able to tell which is which, but this is for Mary, for Sarah, and then of course Winifred Sanderson. So I went into my fabric stash and I chose colors and fabrics of different thicknesses, textures, and placed them all together almost like a patchwork. I just cut out my strips. Didn't have to be too careful with how I cut it, but just essentially cut out strips and place them in an order of color that I liked, and sewed them together with, if you can see, I did kind of like a zigzag, you can see right there, like a zigzag stitch. And then after I did that, I went ahead and I placed a corresponding color tool. So I did green for this one. I did really pretty pink for this one, almost like a purpley pink magenta. And then I did an orange for this one. And this tool I actually got from Dollar Tree, all 3 of these tools. And I had it in my stash. They're from their Halloween collection and fall collection at Dollar Tree, so go check those out. I love them. It just added so much sparkle and dimension to this project. And I always, always, always am a huge fan of texture. So the more texture that I can put into a project, the better. My thought process anyways is for all of the dream catchers that I create, I'm going to cut a corresponding circle and it's going to be the back of the dream catcher. So I'm going to show you how to make the dream catcher on this larger hoop, but it's the same exact process for the 2 smaller ones. And it's actually a lot easier than I thought it would be. There's so many different styles of dream catchers that you can create, some with different designs, but I just kind of went with the basic design. Didn't really want to get too crazy with it, but that's essentially what is going to happen once I create the dream catcher for this. I'm going to glue it down to the back and then cut this out, and it's just going to be all inspired by the witches, and I just think it's so beautiful and perfect. So also did the same process for the other 2 fabric selections, and I just love it. I used ribbon, I used fabric, just scraps of fabric in your stash that remind you of the witches. So I love it, love it, love it. And actually this lace I had in my stash, I dyed it. If you have those leftover Easter egg dye kits, I placed it in some water. I put this lace ribbon in it and I let it soak overnight, and it gave it this really nice light pink color. So get creative and just kind of utilize what you have in your stash. So for the Winifred hoop, I am going to go ahead and use this kind of olive green yarn, which is a yarn that came from the Hocus Pocus kit from Sewrella yarn, and I love it. It's perfect. What I'm going to do is we're just going to, you can eyeball it. If you run out of yarn or string midway through your project, you can do the magic loop technique to tie the 2 ends together, and quite honestly, you won't be able to see where it stops and where it begins. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of take a bunch here. So once I have the yarn that I need all kind of rolled up, you can do it whatever technique works best for you. Everybody works a little bit differently. I haven't really found a better way to do this other than just rolling it up into a small ball. So what you're gonna do is you're going to tie a knot, and I like to tie a knot right at the very end. And this is gonna be concealed because we're gonna cover this. So once you tie it, so you're gonna take your yarn and you're going to go over and through that loop that you made, like that. And then before you pull, you can just kind of decide, okay, where do I wanna, how close do I want this loop, how far apart, that kind of thing. So I'm just gonna put it about there. So I'm just gonna make it so right about there. And then you're just going to tighten it, and you're gonna go ahead and repeat that whole process all throughout. And I try to make it so that it's as even as possible in between. And as you go, I just like to, where I made that little knot, just kind of hold it until I'm able to make another knot. And so essentially what you're going to do is you're just gonna go all the way around, like so, until you have it complete. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish the hoop, and then we'll go back in and do the second round. Okay, so once you finish the first row around, what you're going to do now is I'm gonna go ahead and thread onto this little needle the other end of the yarn. And you just have to be cautious that as you're pulling it through that the other side of it isn't getting tangled up. But I'm going to go ahead and thread my yarn through. So I'm just using a needle threader here to make my life easier. All right, so once I have that, I'm just going to pull that through my needle, and easy peasy. And then I just tie like a very light knot at the beginning so I don't lose my needle. Okay, so once I do that, you're going to go into the middle point of every one of these strings. So what you're gonna do is you're going to go through that loop, and then you're gonna go under, like so. And then you're just gonna pull that all the way through. So you're going to want to have it right in the center like that. And you want to pull that. So then you're gonna hold that little knot. So right into the second one, you're gonna go into it and then down, and then just pull your tail until you get that. And then you secure it, hold it. You're going to just continue this all the way around. It's like a spider web. You're gonna keep doing this same technique all the way through. So when you get to your third row, you're going to go into this one and do the midpoint and go all the way around. So for each row, you're basically going to go into the midpoint of each of the triangles that you're forming. I hope that makes sense. So again, you're just making triangles. So again, creating a midpoint. So you're almost forming a loop. So you're going into and then under like that.
Once all of your dream catchers are finished, it's time to adhere them onto your fabric pieces. And again, I used Fabri-Tac, which is one of my favorite adhesives to use on a variety of different items. I found this amazing mops and brooms set from Hobby Lobby, and because I want this wall hanging to display all the items that the witches used to fly, I want it to include everything. I didn't have a vacuum on hand, so I made one using this adorable Model Magic packet I found at Dollar Tree. Who knew that Dollar Tree sold Model Magic? So I love Dollar Tree. You can find so many amazing things there. And this packet, it's small, but it is the perfect amount of Model Magic that I needed for this particular item that I'm making. I let the Model Magic dry for about 48 to 72 hours just to be sure before I started to apply paint to it, because I am going to paint this to mimic the actual one used in the film. And just keep in mind that the acrylic paint, it took several coats of acrylic paint for it to get actually thick, because initially it was going on really, really thin. So I had to kind of work in layers until one layer dried, and then applied a second coat, a third coat. I kind of lost track of how many coats I ended up using, but it was really cool and I really liked the finished product. I hot glued the two smaller circles onto the larger frame and added small pieces of cardboard to the back side just to give it some added security, because it was a little flimsy on its own. Additionally, I added cardboard to the back of each, so I cut out smaller circles just to make sure I added some extra support to this piece. Once dry, I added the black felt to the entire back just to finish it off a little bit more, and then trimmed off the excess. Now, because I love to add as much sparkle as possible, I wanted to add a little bit more pizzazz to the Dreamcatchers. So I went into my stash and found some sequins that corresponded with each of the colors, and I applied it to each of the individual knots within the Dreamcatchers. And again, I used sequins that matched with the overall color themes, so green for Winifred, purple for Sarah, and orange for Mary. Next, I took that amazing Hocus Pocus fabric and I cut out each of the witches individually, and I applied glow-in-the-dark paint over top and let that dry. I really want it to be able to have this kind of glow when all the lights are off, just kind of seeing them flying through the air. So I'll show you at the end what that looks like, but the glow-in-the-dark paint really did work, and I love the effect that it ended up giving this piece. I found these Dollar Tree signs and again wanted to repurpose them. So the front didn't really matter to me. And then I created this Come We Fly sign in Canva and loved how it turned out, and glued that onto the top of the sign using my tacky glue and set that aside to dry.
Alright guys, that is it for today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications for future Disney Halloween content to come. I have way more content to come, and we're only on September the 9th. So stay tuned for all that is coming to my channel. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. So until next time, take care guys.